Ladies and gentlemen, as we mentioned in the previous course, we're now going to dive into the Effect Controls panel. And if you guys remember from the UI course we made earlier, the Effect Controls panel is responsible for controlling the variables that affect the video which we have inside of our timeline. So real quick, let's just quickly recap everything we've done. So I'm going to go ahead and close down Premiere Pro and just not save whatever project we've got here. And let's go ahead and launch this whole thing completely from scratch to recap everything from point zero. So as soon as we launch Premiere Pro, we are greeted with this screen, which allows us to access project files. I'm going to access the previous project, which we created over here, which is where we are greeted with our UI and workspace layout. So this is how everything is laid out. So with this said, if we want to import some footage and do all that cool stuff, the first thing we need to do is create a new sequence. So we got to go up to File, over to New, and over to Sequence, which allows us to create a new sequence. Since we've already created a preset for the sequence, we can just double click on it and we're going to get it in here. Now, if I go ahead and import some kind of video, so I'm just going to import any sample and I want you to do the same. There's no specific video you have to import, but you can import absolutely any video you've got saved. Let's go with this one, for example. If I import it in my project files, I can now import it into my timeline. And when I do this, you guys can see, right, this is our timeline, which we used in the last episode and we talked all about it. And this is in my video layers and my audio layers and so on and so forth. But there's also one more cool thing that we have to talk about, which is when I click on it in my Effect Controls panel, I get all these cool things pop up. What is the Effect Controls panel? The Effect Controls panel controls a bunch of different things. It controls whichever effects are applied to our whichever we selected. So if I selected like a text, for example, a text layer, it controls all the effects that have to do with our text. If I selected an image, it controls all the effects that have to do with our image. So because I've selected the video, it controls these effects that have to do with our video, which means it's going to control three main things that you need to care about. It's going to control our motion, our opacity, and our time remapping. We're not going to be talking about time remapping or whatever it is. It also controls the audio, by the way, but we also won't talk about that. We're simply going to be talking about the motion, which is the position of it, the scale, the rotation, and the opacity, which is how visible it is. So when you click on this, and if I close all these down, you can see we've got motion, opacity, time remapping, volume, channel volume, and panner. You only need to worry about motion and opacity. These are the two which you're going to be using the most. So when I select something like this, I'm going to have these pop up over here. If I don't have it selected, it's going to say no clip selected. When I select it and open up the motions menu, for example, I can change a few things. I can see they are laid out in this way. On the left side, I have the name of the effect, like the position. And on the right side, I have some values. And these values, if I change them, they're going to change the position. And if I change this value, it's going to change the scale, right? So the position, the way that we change these values is the number on the left side is the X value and the number on the right is the Y value. And I can either hover over them and hold down and move, which allows me to change these numbers, or I can hover over the right side and move, which allows me to change these. And so you guys notice that's exactly how we basically make edits. We move things around and we add variables and change them. For example, like the scale, if I bring it up, it's going to zoom in. And if I bring it down, it's going to zoom out. Or if I don't like using sliders, I can click on this and write out something like 150. Since the base scale is 100, as this 150, I've added 50 plus positive points to the scale. I've increased it by 50. It zooms in. And if I don't like it, I can just click on this button here and reset the parameters. Besides this, you've got your rotation as well, which rotates your footage like so. You've got your anchor point and all these crop stuff, which we won't be getting into and you don't even need to worry about. But for now, your position moves the placement of your clip, your scale zooms in and out, and your rotation rotates your clip around like so. And so with that being said, that's just the motion. If I go over to my opacity, I can change the percentage of how visible my video is. So the more I drop it down, the less visible it is. At 0%, it's invisible. At 100%, it is totally visible. I can set something like 50, for example, to get this effect. And if I don't like it, I can reset it to its original 100. Now, let's say I moved this to the right side and I added a little scale zoom in. And I actually wanted to place Alex Hormozi in the top right like this. And I added a little bit of rotation to him. But let's say I didn't like the fact that he's in the right side. I want to keep the rotation and scale, but I want to keep Alex Hormozi in the middle. All I have to do is just click on reset for the middle, and it's going to reset my, this probably wasn't the best example, but it's going to reset my video to the middle and leave the scale and rotation. Okay, if I reset my rotation, it's going to make it 0, but leave the scale. And if I reset my scale, it's going to go back to its original scale. So with that being said, one of the common shortcuts that you have to keep in mind when using things like properties is Control-Z. So whatever you do, right? Let's say I messed up real bad and I've flipped everything. I can Control-Z to undo every step. So I undid my movement, undid my rotation, undid my scale, undid my placement. Okay? Control C is really useful. Let's say you undid something that you want to redo. You can click on Control Shift Z to redo it and redo and redo and redo. Okay, so it kind of works in two directions. We're going to be diving into all this stuff in a different course, so don't even worry about it. But the main point of this entire session is just understanding the effect controls panel. The effect controls panel, basically whenever you want to make any edit, holds all of the controls to your effects. Okay, so everything that you want to change about your video is all going to be located up here. And that is basically everything that has to do with the effect controls panel. So let's say you've got a clip. Let's do a bit of practice. Let's say you've got a clip over here and I want to move this to the left side and zoom in a little. You first go to your position, you go over to your X amount and you move it to the left side, and then you zoom in a little like this. Okay, let's say I now want it to be on the right side, inverted at 90 degrees. Let's first reset both of these. Let's change this to 90 degrees, or even easier, just type in here 90 degrees to get the accurate results, and then just scale it down like so, and then move to the right side and place it right here. And there we go. We have a clip on the right side. So you guys notice the effect controls panel is super easy to use. It is super simple and very straightforward. And it is about as simple as editing is going to get. That is pretty much everything there is to the effect controls panel. And if you ever add any effects to your footage, you can always find the controls up here. Okay, that is exactly how you use your effect controls panel. Now, this is not everything there is to editing. As a matter of fact, this is just barely scratching the surface. Another big part of editing is using your editing tools. So Adobe provides you with all these tools over here, which you can use to edit. And in the next course, we're going to be diving into what each of these tools does and how exactly we can use them to edit our clips and move things around and basically create whichever edit we want. We're going to be diving into the 3 most important tools and a few more that are really important for you to kind of keep in mind. So with this being said, guys, I'll see you in the next course in which we're going to be diving into your editing tools. Make sure you keep refreshing your mind with these, and don't worry if we're going too fast. You're going to practice this stuff in your actionable step, and you're going to keep it and retain this information in your mind. See you guys in the next course.